the man that can take us to the next level. But then again, this message from Professor Eric Ansa. Good morning. People are entitled to their personal opinion, but it must not be predicated on falsehood or a distortion or I don't get the last word that you put there. I think that was a typo. But I said the essence of such a comment must not necessarily be seen through the ideological position, but we should not also water down the consistent comments made by the MPP about Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. In my view, Dr. Matope Kupempe was only reflecting what the larger view and perception or position of the party is. But then again, whether personal or otherwise, it must be predicated on facts. The facts do not support any personal opinion about that comparison between Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So yes, that's just in response to the question I asked about the fact that yes, he says it is personal opinion. Even in that apology that was published yesterday, he did reiterate that point, that it is his personal view. In fact, I've heard persons within the party indicate that it is his personal view. His special assistant, Fifi Boafo, also did indicate that it is his personal view as well. That effort to extricate the party from this also sends us another signal. But for Peter McMahon, it has no material effect on the fortunes of the party, so you should not be sweating about this.
Yeah.
Well, Alfred, that's Mr. Mac Manus' assessment of what has been said. But the verdict is out there. If it were the case, I don't think the level of anger that people have displayed and revulsion that people have shown towards those comments would have come to the fore. But you see, arrogance is manifested in various ways. It can be through your actions, it can be through your speech, it can even be through your body language. And so when people say that they are arrogant because they speak the truth, then they misunderstand, what people interpret as arrogance. Yeah. Because truth speaking does not make you arrogant.
Yes.
Like I said, the people will interpret your arrogance based on your conduct, your speech, and your body language. Yeah. And for me, I think that the Asantehenes once again demonstrated that he is a wise ruler. Very wise man. You know, there is a public perception that Napo is his son, which he can't run away from, and that he trained Napo. There's also a public perception that his son, who he trained, is arrogant. So, given the opportunity, even though he advised him indoors, he wanted the people of Ghana to know that he has nothing to do with the arrogant nature of this young man. And that's not how he trained him. Mm-hmm. And that if people see him to be arrogant, he doesn't see it because that's not how he trained him. Mm-hmm. But he is cautioning him not to make people right. Wise man. Wise man. So if he goes out to mess himself further like he did, he, Asantehenes, has no hand in it. He didn't train him like that. Very wise man. And I think that was the purpose of making that advice public, so that people wouldn't think that he trained an arrogant boy. Because you see, there's the tendency for people to associate arrogance with authority and power. Yeah. So people could have been forgiven to say that, oh, his arrogance is because he was raised in the palace or because he's Asantehenes' boy. But Asantehenes has told us that if he's arrogant, and we have all determined that he's arrogant, we shouldn't associate it with him. Yeah. Very wise man. Yeah. I was very impressed that he did it the way he did. Then he goes to the platform. And what did we see? Like Mr. Yaboabe Asamoah has said, it wasn't just the attack on former presidents, but attack on even party members who have grievances about how the party is managed. He gave it to them. Yeah. He gave it to teachers. claiming that they even steal food that is abandoned. He gave it to teachers on that platform. I mean, and you were wondering, is this the person who is supposed to be exuding a certain level of, unity of purpose? Because that's what I will think the M people will need at this point. And then he went further, not only to give it to Nkrumah, but to his own mentor. Because I've always known Napo to be one of the Kufuor trainees, mentees. That's how he's always projected himself. But with little elevation, his ingratitude shows on that platform. Little elevation by Nana Akufo-Addo, he already forgets that he's a Kufuor boy.
Mac Manus says
And then he gives it to Kufuor.
How?
Oh,
He's been fighting. He and Kufuor are not on good terms.
But it doesn't matter.
They've had to patch up several times.
That's for you who know. In fact, he almost mentioned President Kufuor's name because he said, Kwame Nkrumah, and then he dragged his trunk.
We didn't hear that.
Well, you complained, but he said and then he somebody dragged his trunk. And then he paused. No, you complained.
Nobody dragged his trousers.
He said, the thing is that Alfred, he said,
putting too much
let me finish. No, you complained back. He said he didn't end at Kwame Nkrumah. He went further. He almost mentioned a second name and paused.
But we don't know what the name he was going to.
Well, I believe that he doesn't have any respect for President Mahama, so he would have still mentioned it. The only reason why he paused was because he remembered that if he mentioned that name, the party would take him on. But he almost mentioned President Kufuor. And when I saw the apology after the intransigence in the Western region, where he said he was just a truth speaker, what came to my mind, Alfred, was that this apology was not for Kwame Nkrumah. And it was not to the people of Ghana. It was an apology to President Kufuor. It was an apology to President Kufuor.
To his grand-uncle.
Specifically, he mentioned especially my grand-uncle.
Yes.
And then watch the words. The people of Ghana were not discomforted by his conduct. They were angry. But he says he's apologized for any discomfort it caused. Because I believe that his behavior caused some discomfort within the party, especially in President Kufuor's house. So he has to remind himself and remind President Kufuor, that you are my grand-uncle, and I'm sorry for any discomfort that I caused. The apology was pure and simple to President Kufuor, but to the rest of us, the people of Ghana who are concerned about, the disrespect he showed to President Kufuor, we can toast in our pig-headedness for all he cares. He just didn't apologize to former President Nkrumah. He didn't apologize to us for being upset with him. He said that he's a truth speaker. And you see, Alfred, like I said,
you don't
arrogance.
See these words that
Arrogance.
I never meant to disrespect our former president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He mentions his name there.
Yes.
Or any of our former heads of state.
Yes.
Including my own grand-uncle.
Why did he include that is the essence of the apology, including my grand-uncle and mentor, Mr. John Kufuor. I know the concerns raised after my statement. I apologize sincerely. I regret my discomfort caused.
Yes.
The people of Ghana were not discomforted. They were angry.
Oh, but anger brings.
But you see,
anger brings discomfort.
I'm saying that. Why even he said? But let me wrap up. If you plead,
Kufuor was the second name he was going to mention. The person is already down, so let's move on.
You see,
he has apologized.
You see, when you talk of arrogance, I've already told you that it can manifest in various ways. Now, if you have, a person like the vice president on the platform declare himself as the best vice president this country has ever had, it lacks humility. It lacks humility. And again, I thought to myself, couldn't you even be magnanimous about the fact that former Vice President Aliu Mahama contributed so much to making you a vice president? But that is an arrogant person who will not even wait to be celebrated but will celebrate himself and say, look, I am the best vice president since independence.
You are not celebrating him enough.
That lacks magnanimity. You see, Alfred, I'm saying that lacks magnanimity.
You are not celebrating
for crashing the economy.
For crashing his economy. Then he has the arrogance to even disrespect his own party's former vice president, who sacrificed so much to make him vice president. I mean, he doesn't even see that he should be humble. Even, look, we are taught to be humble in our successes. Is that not so?
Yeah.
We are taught to be humble in our successes. That is the level of humility. That is the Ghanaian-ness in us. But this man, so it is not just Napo who is arrogant. And so you find him move from there and then goes to the north. And you see, Alfred, growing up as a young man from the north, I watch our northern politicians in different political parties. One thing they had for each other was respect. I watched John Mahama and Aliu Mahama, respect for each other. But you see, what I have seen Dr. Bawumia do consistently since he was nominated as running mate is to disrespect, and that's arrogance. His senior brother, John Mahama, he says he's empty like an empty barrel. He should come for them to debate.
Okay, well,
arrogance.
Let me bring Mensah because he has to run away.
So Alaji, I mean, makes the point that he believes that Otumfuo was being very wise.
Very wise.
To make sure that anything that happened in the thereafter, he could dissociate himself. That, look, this is not how I trained the man. Honestly, as I watched his posture, I think Otumfuo wasn't just trying to dissociate himself. I think I want to give him some more credit and say he was being very serious. If you look at his facial contortions, it was like, this is a nephew, this is a son of the land, and I'm telling you, you've gotten yourself into a privileged position. From this point, be very cautious. I think Otumfuo was trying to set the platform, as Yao has said, wipe the slate clean and give him an opportunity to move forward. However, before Otumfuo, we had Prophet Yankson. How many of us remember Kojo Yankson a week earlier and said that, look, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And somehow, and that's the problem I have, it looks like our political elite, especially those in government, are not listening. What is happening and they are refusing to listen to anyone, I don't know. Refusal to listen. They didn't listen. Yankson said categorically, the way this man talks, this thing is dead on arrival. And within 1 week, it didn't even take 1 week. This is what has happened. I think we want to remind them that, please, if you've been looking at the electoral fortunes of the parties, no party has more than 50%. All parties have a core constituency of, let's say, 40 to 42%. There's about 15 to 17% floating voters who you need to cut. The neutrals. People who are independent and making up their mind and swinging.
We are here.
And we are here. Yes, absolutely. We are here. So that idea that, the core ethnic grouping is sufficient for you to cross the line is a mirage. I think what bothers me the most is the ethical deficit that we are seeing across board. The issues we've been talking about, the inconsistency. In opposition, you say one thing. You make promises. We'll do the economy this, we'll do the economy that. Then you get into office, you don't fulfill any of the promises. You come back on a presidential ticket and you're expecting us to follow you. What are we talking about? One moment you insist on your position, I'm right. I will not apologize. Kwame Nkrumah didn't do that. Then you come up with an apology and you expect us to believe you. Why should we believe you?
Why are you not believing?
Integrity, honesty, respect. If he had respect for all the other presidential candidates, all the people who have served this country, you don't get on a platform and you make comments that suggest that they had nothing to offer to this country. You know your own candidacy depends on the votes of Ghanaians. You are cautious about how you offend other constituencies. Honesty, respect, integrity, ethical deficiencies. So I'm worried, and I'm saying just like Martin was saying, when we go to the voting booth, look out for Ghanaians who have shown consistent ethical positions, knowing what is right, doing what is right, and influencing others to do what is right. That's what we should be voting for. Don't vote for people who have said one thing and not stood up to stand for that. But they have not delivered on their promises.
If that's the yardstick you're going to be using, which political grouping will pass the test?
I don't know why I'm talking about political grouping. We are looking for candidates.
Or which candidate will pass? Because, well, there's always been that path, and we're on it, where statements have been made in the past, and it's always brought up, and the inconsistencies juxtaposed, one against the other. So if you're talking about that being the ethical standard for the selection of leaders in this country, who's going to pass the test?
The truth of the matter is this. The least we would expect is that when you have made something wrong, you come back to the people, offer an apology, and give us the remedy of what you do going forward. That is the challenge we face. People are not willing to accept that we have failed, we have made a mistake, and you know what is happening in Kenya now? What is Ruto doing? He is accepting where things have gone wrong, taking the necessary actions in there now, not giving a pushback, pretending until Labour says that, oh, we are jumping onto the streets, nothing. Then all of a sudden you decide that you backtrack. What kind of ethical position is that? At least acknowledge that you are doing something wrong, come to the people, sit with your stakeholders, come up with solutions and strategies. That's what we are expecting. When you are able to look at a candidate where anytime an issue was raised, they were willing to come to the table, talk about it, sanction when necessary, come up with remedies, sitting with stakeholders. Now we are talking about serious candidature for leadership in this country. Then we are sure that going forward, we'll make progress.
Has any of the candidates given you the assurance, especially in the fight against corruption, what they are going to do? Because this was a question that came up during that encounter with John Mahama.
No.
And he indicated that, look, to the extent that he was branded as the most corrupt president, and now no prosecution has been brought up against him, and he's come back to seek re-election, tells you that it was all for the politics of it. Let's take a look at that, and I'll find out from you what citizens should be looking out for, especially going into this election with this campaign of corruption, whether it's just for the politics of it, or there's some ethical basis or some basis of fact to it. Take a look.
A lot of allegations were thrown against me. I've been out of office for 7 years and 7 months. You think that if this government had anything they could stand on with how they hate my persona, they would not have prosecuted me for it. Airbus, the president referred it to the OSP, and the OSP is supposed to investigate it. You don't expect me to investigate myself.
Well, so, Mr. Ano, would you fault him for this sense of vindication?
Let me put it this way. Clearly, the government in opposition, the party in opposition at the time, trumped up the corruption issues and used it as a platform to get into power. It was clear. I mean, issues had arisen. I had been reflecting on the SADES, the GDES, the bus branding issues that came up. And I find that, to a certain extent, the Mahama government made much more effort to address issues, because bus branding, they renegotiated, whichever Smarties or so paid by 1.5 million or so. Eventually, Jifa Ativo resigned. JIDA contracts were cancelled. SADA contracts again were cancelled. People have, yes.
15 million Ghana.
Yes. And so there's a certain responsiveness that happened. However, as I've listened to President Mahama, I still see a gap. It looks like the immediate remedial actions have been taken. But have we learned in terms of what are the preventive actions? How come these things happened in those sectors? What are we going to do differently to prevent them from reoccurring?
You haven't heard that?
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
And so I worry. That's the gap I see. Because in our space, for anti-corruption and good governance, we say prevention is much more important than prosecution or chasing the money after it's gone out. So, yes, there seems to be an advantage, but we have not yet nailed it, and would like to hear the candidates talking about learning. How are we learning so that we perform much better going into the future? That would be my question.
Thank you. And I'll give that on this same last couple of minutes to Lawyer Matic Bebo as well, because on this same path, the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, which and what kind of statement would you expect from the various persons who are seeking our mandate, especially because of that provision of the asset declaration, the publication of the assets owned by these persons seeking our mandate, so that we all get to know what they own in terms of assets before they come into power. And when they are leaving they will publish. Then we know what do you expect to hear from them?
Exactly what you stated, Mr. Okansi. Exactly that. Pure and simple. That let's have that new law, that new asset declaration law, which makes it mandatory that these public officers would publish their assets after the declaration. In other words, as part of the new regime, when they hand in the declaration, the institution, if it's still shroud, fine. But if we want to amend and create a totally new institution to deal with it, like what they do in Nigeria, fine, whichever one. But the institution will then publish, preferably online, so that the man in Paga, the man in Boko, right, can sit right there and check rather than having to travel to Accra. Because if there is a minister from his community and he sees the minister so close to 10 buildings that the whole community believe it belongs to the minister, and yet when he Googles online, he sees that the asset declaration form has only 3 buildings or something, then they can, raise concerns. Because asking a man to travel from Boku to Accra to come and check on the asset declaration is not a viable option to, give citizens at this time of our development. So let's do it by all means. I know it's an IMF conditionality. So right. I'm surprised that for our next tranche, you see that they've done the Bank of Ghana bill to give it more independence, etc. But we've not seen anything about the asset declaration law when it is also an IMF conditionality. So let's look at it.
Very important. And just to put it on record that we have a big conversation on this Conduct of Public Officers bill in the coming weeks here on TV3.
Just to wind up, just to reiterate my point on the call on policymakers and politicians to do more to tackle the food inflation that we are experiencing. A cousin of mine last 2 weeks came from the US, and he took a few other cousins out on dinner. They mentioned the food. They say, hey. He couldn't stay for 2 weeks. He's just fled the country because by the cost of living, in other developed jurisdictions, food is the cheapest. But it appears that we are spending all our money on food. And it is not helpful. We should be ashamed as we go about trumpeting of a cliche to break any age if we have not been able to solve the basic food inflationary problems confronting, the good people of Ghana.
Professor Ransford Jampo is yes, I do. And we'll have a conversation.
So
in fact, I don't want you to take it out because we will spend time on GTP.
8 points.
I promise you that.
8 points on
thank you so much. Professor Ransford Jampo is a professor of political science at the University of Ghana.
I should make it
also to you
is that he doesn't see what will be different under President Mahama. And it's because maybe we're not listening to him very well. He's saying that, look, my fight against corruption made me a victim of corruption. And that is what he also agrees to. That because he was fighting it, it rather seemed as if he was engaging in it.
Tamale North Member of Parliament,
just has promised that.
Al-Hassan Suhini, thank you so much. Lawyer Martin Pebo, I appreciate your coming. Also to you, Lawyer Yababe Samoa, I appreciate your coming. Thank you. Thank you so much.